Imagine a country twice the size of California, but with only 2 million people.
No wonder they call it Namibia. Namib means place of no people. It's the oldest desert in the world. It's a land of ancient rock that spilled out of the earth over the ages, hardening to become the backbone of a country that is the driest south of the Sahara.
Namibia's dunes stretch for over 1,000 miles, from South Africa all the way north to Angola. They're dynamic landscapes, sculpted by wind into amazing shapes. These are the famous red dunes of Sossusvlei, the results of winds that blow from different directions, and some of them are up to 1,000 feet tall.
These are the lighter colored dunes found closer to the sea, where they are shaped by strong coastal winds.
The reason the Namib Desert exists at all lies offshore. Cold water, the Benguela Current, plays a major role in creating arid conditions inland. And for millions of years, that same current has also transported sand north along Namibia's coast where strong winds blow it inland. That sand originated, oddly enough, from the Kalahari Desert, deep in the interior of southern Africa. It washes down into the Orange River, which empties it out into the Atlantic Ocean just south of Namibia.
And this is the result. A great sand sea meets the ocean in a magnificent setting that is as wild as any place we've ever been to. It's called the Skeleton Coast for all the shipwrecks that have occurred there over the years. When we camped here, we were the only people in a wilderness of more than 10,000 square miles.
Here's the big picture. Namibia is tucked into a corner of Southwest Africa, surrounded by unstable Angola in the north, prosperous Botswana to the east, and it is heavily influenced by South Africa. It gained political independence only 20 years ago, when the apartheid regime imposed by white South Africa came to an end. In the 19th century, Namibia was a German colony, but the Germans were pushed out by the English after World War I, and South Africa ruled it until 1990.
Two powerful winds rule the climate of Namibia: the strong southwesterly that prevails for much of the year, and the periodic but dreaded east wind, a winter wind that gathers heat and speed as it pours off Namibia's central escarpment and blows with hot fury and hurricane force, whirling clouds of sand across the land and far out to sea.
And that east wind can literally blow the desert into the ocean. Here's a space shuttle view of that remarkable phenomenon. And to give you an idea the size of those sand plumes, consider that this place here is 5,000 square miles. That's Etosha Pan.
And here is the ground view of a smoking dune hit by a strong wind. The left side is a slip face, and that's where the sand collects and piles up. The dune gradually moves over time. This is pretty typical weather along the coast. The island in the background had a great colony of gannets, which our guide said we could easily reach with an inflatable dinghy. We decided to postpone that idea.
You know, with field work, you always have to improvise, and sometimes you end up with really enthusiastic guides who say that anything is possible, but you know, we're in it for the long run. Here's how the desert sand meets the sea and vice versa. The foam is the result of these strong offshore winds that whip the biomass of phytoplankton into a froth. Consider it something like marine egg whites. And like other major fisheries, the Benguela Current's marine life has been plundered. And wildlife populations like these Cape gannets have declined seriously, but Namibia's first marine protected area, declared last year, is an important step in the right direction.
Just like the cold California current that runs along America's west coast, the Benguela Current supports a rich marine ecosystem. And onshore, that results in spectacular gatherings of fur seals, like this one at Cape Cross, where over 500,000 seals may haul out for the breeding season.
And that attracts predators, like jackals, looking for an easy meal. Here's a fur seal pup trying to defend itself against a hungry jackal. But jackals are not the only ones who want to take advantage of the seals. This is a very rare image of a very rare animal very few people ever see. It's a cousin of the well-known spotted hyenas of Africa's savannas, But this one is shaggy, solitary, and very shy.
Getting coverage of brown hyenas was near the top of our wish list, but one hyena's territory can be as large as 300 square miles.
It's not easy to see wildlife in the interior of the Namib Desert, and most of the time you have to be content with deciphering tracks, like these of a Cape fox making its way up a dune.
Or the slithers of a snake winding its way through the sand. Most of the desert's small creatures may scribble tracks on the sand surface at night, but they're forced underground by day to escape the heat. These are oryxes, also known as hemsbok, which are so well adapted to desert life that they never have to drink water. When it's hot, an oryx can raise its body temperature up to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, so it doesn't sweat and lose moisture. And its blood passes through special nasal veins that cool it down before it overheats the brain.
This is a herd of springboks seen from the air. A century ago, these antelopes numbered in the tens of millions. Early white farmers complained that they couldn't sleep at night when migrating springbok moved across their land in now unimaginable concentrations. If you want to find animals in the desert, what do? You look for water, because it's a magnet. These springbok are coming to drink at a very small water hole that we found. And at that same spot, these sand grouse gathered. They need to drink water on a regular basis, and they may fly up to 40 miles to a water source. The adults have a unique ability to gather water in their breast feathers to take it back to their chicks, who drink it up directly from the parrot's soaked breast plumage. Just as in California, where we live, Namibia's coast is blessed by periodic fog caused by warm, moist air from the open Atlantic Ocean blowing across the cold Benguela Current. The air condenses and it stretches inland as a life-enhancing blanket across the desert. And fog is what keeps these remarkable plants alive. It hardly ever rains where they occur on the coastal gravel plains. They are welwitches, and they look like alien life forms from another planet.
Or plants that had a rough night on the town. They only grow in the Namib Desert, and some individuals are believed to live for as long as 2,000 years. They're so unique that botanists have placed them in their own subfamily. There's simply no other plant quite like them. Their long, leathery leaves can't hold any moisture, but they've evolved to catch fog. Large welwitches create a microhabitat in the naked desert that gives shelter to other creatures as well. Some of these welwitches look so distinctive that we gave them names to tell them apart, something we often do when we work with wild animals, but we'd never applied it to plants before. This one, with its long curling dreadlocks, we called Bob Marley.
Welwitches come in both sexes, and this muscular male plant looked like a real bodybuilder, so we named him
Arnold. This voluptuous female we named Marilyn. You can tell female plants by their seed cones in the center, which look a bit like those of a conifer tree, and they are, in fact, distantly related to pines.
This is a close-up of Marilyn's cones. I guess we could have called her Madonna, too. Female welwitches are pollinated by bees and wasps, and when the cones ripen, they release thousands of papery seeds that are dispersed by the wind.
And welwitches host their own unique array of life, including this sap-sucking beetle, whose nymphs are preyed upon by another juice-loving beetle. The Namib Desert is full of remarkable plants. Look at these spectacular succulents. The native Bushmen of southern Africa used to hollow out branches of this tree to hold their arrows. That's why they're called quiver trees. And their bark is so smooth and shiny.
And that makes them particularly suitable for photography in low light, because they reflect ambient light very well. The sensors of modern digital cameras, like the ones I use, have a much higher sensitivity than I could have ever dreamt of when I was working with film. In the days of film, a typical film speed was 100 or 200 ISO. When I got to 400 ISO, things became problematic. But now, I can shoot at a sensitivity of up to 12,000 ISO. So I made this photo by moonlight alone.
Very few people visited Namibia a century ago, But in 1908, the course of its history changed forever when diamonds were found near the coastal town of Luderitz. In some places, they were just lying on the surface, and the miners crawled on their bellies and collected them by the handful. Sometimes they would go out to search for diamonds at night when they twinkled in the moonlight. It was the richest deposit ever found.
1/5 of all the world's gem diamonds come from Namibia. And even though they could only be found right along the coast, a huge security area was established inland as a buffer to prevent people from sneaking in and out illegally with diamonds. It was called the Sperrgebiet, German for the Forbidden Zone.
In one way, diamonds were this desert's best friend. The Forbidden Zone stretched along nearly half the coast of Namibia, from South African border, 450 miles north and 60 miles inland. And because mining was done mostly near the coast, the sprawling desert interior has been virtually untouched since 1908. No human settlements, no roads, no livestock. It's a wonderland of walking dunes, exotic animals, and rare plants.
Vast fields of mobile sand dunes. These crescent-shaped dunes that are forever on the move are called barken or walking dunes. They're formed by powerful winds that blow from one direction, and they bring planet Earth a little bit closer to Mars, because similar dune formations were recently discovered by a NASA satellite on the surface of the red planet. We received permission from the Namibian government to explore the Sperrgebiet, most of which has not yet been opened officially to tourism. And of course, we were keen to get to some of these amazing places, including this remarkable stretch of coastline. It's known as the Long Wall for its massive dunes that come right to the ocean.
Last year, the Namibia government made another important decision. They announced plans to establish the largest national park in Africa, the Namib Skeleton Coast National Park, an area of 60,000 square miles. Some of the areas in this new park were already protected, but the Sperrgebiet was added and a few other coastal areas to create a true super park that includes the entire coastline from Angola to South Africa.
Namib Naukluft as a park pre-existed here. The Skeleton Coast exists up here to the north. This is the Sperrgebiet, and then a couple of other areas were added here in the middle. We went deep into the Sperrgebiet with a guide who is one of the most experienced dune drivers in southern Africa, and the only one permitted so far to take people into this vast sand sea for a good reason. He understands the ecology of the desert, and he knows how to navigate his vehicles through the dunes without causing any damage.
With our small team, we ventured from the interior of the sand sea down to the coast through trackless desert. Inland from the coast, across the Great Sand Sea, you reach the foot of the jagged Naukluft Mountains and the Namib Reserve. It's a place of cinematic beauty with sinuous lines of vegetated sand dunes that glow red in the evening sun.
And from the air, strange circles pock the landscape. They're called fairy circles, and for a long time they were an unexplained mystery. But a recent study finally confirms that the fairies are actually termites, which have eaten all the grass seeds within the circles. They like to keep their place clean.
The Namib Reserve was the dream of Albie Bruckner, a far-sighted businessman from Windhoek who bought a dozen overgrazed sheep farms and turned them into the largest private nature sanctuary in Africa, covering more than 800 square miles. The reserve is supported by revenues from a few spectacularly sited eco-lodges.
The desert terrain of Namib was really not that well suited to commercial sheep farming, but for gemsbok, and notice the pronunciation, it's ideal habitat, and large herds now gather here. They've come back. And because wild animals are better grazers on this land than domestic livestock, the land itself has recovered too.
This is nothing short of a great healing. With commercial livestock removed, fences are being pulled out and wildlife can now roam across larger areas. Here's a herd of rare red hartebeest crossing a road into grassland where fences once cut them off.
Bringing predators back is part of that healing. Cheetahs are roaming again through Namib after they've been exterminated. If you want to practice conservation in Africa effectively, you've got to give local people a chance to do things their way. Here's a meeting in a Himba village where a community conservancy was established.
Those conservancies are an innovative way to give people a chance to find solutions for conflicts between livestock and wildlife at their own level. It's easy to proclaim that elephants need to be protected, and they do, but it's not easy to coexist with them when they push their weight around at precious water sources. At the invitation of the World Wildlife Fund, Frans and I visited several conservancies. We went to the far north, the homeland of the Himba people, traditional pastoralists, who don't have much in the way of material possessions. They're still semi-nomadic.
But the trend is towards small permanent settlements with humble dwellings. And yet the people from this simple village are co-owners of this spectacular nearby tourist lodge in a unique business partnership with Wilderness Safaris, a safari company that does truly innovative things in Namibia.
We visited a village with anthropologist Karen Knott, who has spearheaded a unique program that takes the knowledge that Himba women have of a desert plant that they use to beautify themselves and turns it into an economic resource. Here's how they do it. The Himba women search for a bush they call the Perfume Plant. It exudes a resin that smells fresh and aromatic. They pluck the resin from the branches and then use it to scent a moisturizing skin balm. The resin used by the Himba women has attracted the attention of European cosmetics companies that are looking for new natural substances to use in their own beauty products. Resin collecting has been transformed from a traditional activity into a resource for the whole village, and it's a revolution for women who are now earning money for the first time in their lives. Through the conservancy movement, young Namibians have new opportunities that are better aligned with the conservation of nature.
And when you give people ownership of their natural resources, every elephant and every rhino becomes a valuable asset instead of something to poach away in secret. This man's proudly displaying the inventory of his conservancy's wildlife. Now keep in mind that he has no background in this. He has no degree in resource management. This is mostly done from the bottom up, but with support from the government and long-term significant support from the World Wildlife Fund here in the US. Tourists too are expanding in numbers, and that's a good thing for Namibia because it really needs the revenues from tourism and it reinforces the value of protected areas, but it can also lead to problems. Uncontrolled off-road driving has damaged certain areas where single tracks have become multi-lane highways. This is an area that had a low-grade level of protection, but it has now been brought into the super park, and hopefully some of these things can be resurrected. But when it comes to environmental impacts, open pit mines like this huge uranium mine called Rossing are of a totally different magnitude. Yet you do have to recognize what the income means for the needs of Namibia's developing economy. But it also hurts to look out over this landscape and know that this is the site of another future uranium mine, situated just inside Namib-Naukluft National Park, and it's led to serious discussions within the country.
It wasn't that long ago that these people were the only ones roaming around in the Namib Desert, hunter-gatherers who know themselves as San or Ikung, but we know them as Bushmen. They left records of their lives on the rocks, exquisite paintings of themselves. We traveled to a place called Twyfelfontein, which features one of the greatest arrays of rock art in all of Africa. And this is one of the most remarkable pieces, known as the Dancing Kudu. It shows a pregnant female kudu, and this is the only known rock art believed to be created by women and done communally.
The kudu is surrounded by circles that are believed to representations of lunar cycles. It's really quite a magnificent place. Some rock faces feature great assemblages of animals. This is a famous site, but they only show up faintly by day. So we worked a lot after dark to illuminate the engravings with special lighting to make the details stand out better. And when you shine lights right along the rock face, it almost looks like the animals are leaping off the rock.
Here, what appears to be the paw of a lion has really been interpreted by anthropologists as a shamanistic symbol because it has toes like a human instead of claws like a cat. And this is the panel known as Lion Man. Notice how the lion's tail ends in the same shamanistic footprint.
This is a unique feature. I've never seen any other place that has quite those qualities. Now, whenever I can, I like to be eye level with the animals I photograph. It makes my images much more intimate, no matter whether you're looking at an ostrich with its dinosaur feet, or a family of zebras, or a white rhino and her calf.
We arranged to spend time in a bunker constructed by researchers. It's shown here at the lower left. It's a concrete cube about 7 feet square, sunk into the ground, and with a pillbox slit for us to look out. We slipped inside when no animals were around.
And here's what happened.
No animal could get past the heavy iron lid that sealed us in. And from inside, we had an amazing view of elephants. But of course, they knew we were there.
What did we just hear? Elephant. Really? I think so.
Then one bull approached. His trunk was inside. I'm so proud that I didn't cuss on camera.
Elephants have their ways to let you know who's in charge. This is a scene from another day when I was outside the bunker. I was lying across on the other side of the water hole, and I saw this elephant approach and scratching his hind feet with Chris inside. So there are scary moments when you do this field work, but if that's the price of admission you have to pay to enter their world, we gladly do that. Yeah, our passion is to get out there and to bring back images and stories that convey intimacy, like this female who is definitely aware of us. She is somewhat wary, but still not that concerned. And an image like this that shows majesty. And if we can make a little bit of a difference with what we do, we'll gladly get shaken up once in a while. Thank you.